Hey, Kevin here with Notes on Iowa. Today we're talking about part 2, day 4 of my 2021 walk across Iowa to follow the path of the 1835 Iowa Dragoons. You can find all about the project over on the website at notesoniowa.com or checking out the different social media pages. But today we're talking about the day I went from Big Creek State Park up to Ledges State Park. So I'm moving from one state park to another. On the way in between, I passed through Madrid, as well as going through the Iowa Arboretum and making a brief stop at Dragoon Field at Camp Mitigwa. So come along with me as we take a look at part 2, day 4. Heading out from Big Creek State Park, I just kind of made my way up to some gravel roads that would take me eventually to Highway 17 and up to Madrid. If you want to see more about Big Creek or the Saylorville Lake area, you can check out the article or a video related to part 2, day 3. But as I kind of made my way up, my ultimate goal was to make it to Ledges State Park, which is one of the most visited. But first, I had to go through some agricultural countryside. Heading from Big Creek, the next thing that you run into is Little Creek. And as I crossed Little Creek, I continued to just make progress in the early morning, headed up towards Boone County and Madrid, which is where I crossed into the county. I saw some Dragoon Trail signs. I went is an early Sunday morning, so I didn't stop at the castle or historical museum, which are both great locations if you get a chance to check them out. I did put the drone up and take a look at that town on the early Sunday morning, but otherwise just kind of quietly passed through Madrid up to what is commonly called the Rose Road. Madrid is part of an agricultural part of the state, which where obviously all the parts are largely agricultural, but has a deep coal mining past as well. A lot of small coal mines in the late 1800s connected with the early railroad, but also a rich agricultural past. It's an interesting place to see the blend of those two, agriculture and this coal industry, and kind of the remnants of what that was. But I headed up past a cemetery on the Rose Road, which is kind of this winding north-south road, headed up towards first the Iowa Arboretum, then eventually onto Ledges State Park. And so as I got walking, one of the things I saw was a sign for an unincorporated town, or a former kind of ghost town of Bell Point that was part of the Iowa 150 program back in the 1990s, Celebrate Our State. And it's kind of interesting, in the year 2021, we're celebrating Iowa's 175th. But I just continued up there, took a slight diversion down to the Iowa Arboretum, a beautiful place that preserves all sorts of different flora specimens, has a variety of shade plants as well as the trees you would expect at a normal arboretum. Saw a few kind of critters in there, took a few moments to just kind of relax, saw a squinty or a chipmunk or ground squirrel. I'm really confused about this, Iowans, but also saw a woodpecker that kept skirting around the tree from me. Eventually did get a shot of him though. There is some cool buildings on the property, including a small kind of memorial to Iowa's Country Schools programs. Make sure if you're interested in that to check out the Country School Conference coming up this fall. And then also just a lot of other variety of plants. One of the things that also was clearly evident was the impact of the derecho that came through Iowa last year. The Arboretum itself lost tons of trees, a lot of work underway there to help kind of replant, rebuild, and bring the Arboretum back to what it once was. I'd really encourage you to donate to that if you have the means. From there, I pushed took a look at the river right there off Peach Avenue at a small canoe access, eventually before heading over to Camp Mitigwa. I stopped at this spot because it's a bona fide Dragoon site. Here we see the Dragoon Field, as it is on all the Camp Mitigwa maps. This is a Boy Scout camp, and the Dragoons undoubtedly camped very close to Dragoon Field. The director of the camp and myself were kind of debating back and forth if they actually stayed in the exact spot on the field, but who knows? From there, I headed up past Dragoon Trail sign and arrived at Ledges State Park. And Ledges is one of the most visited state parks in Iowa, if not the most visited. It's one that many people are familiar with, and here we can see the campground, kind of or the above entrance. Ledges is interesting because it kind of sneaks up on you if you're walking there like I was. It's really flat. but eventually you head down and then the canyon drops off to the river level. One of the things that I would encourage you to do is get to some of the sites that people don't normally go see. If you go on the Lost Island Lake, or the Lost Lake Loop, excuse me, you can see a couple of really good views of the Des Moines River. There's a nice trail over there. There's some different wildlife, plant life, some wildflowers were coming into bloom while I was there. But then also make sure you go check out the other trails as well. The canyon gets a lot of the attention down on the floodplain, and Ledges does flood quite frequently. One of the challenges, especially since Saylorville Dam was built in the 1970s, Ledges will flood, not every year, but a lot of the time, really changing the lowland and canyon part of the park from what it once was. Local people told me that Ledges never flooded prior to that. There's a lot of protest and resistance. When the Saylorville Dam was built, related to Ledges in particular. But today the park is widely enjoyed. If you go during the day, there's all sorts of people. You can see iconic stone bridges, and usually there's all sorts of kids down in the puddles. I went back the following day at about 5:30 in the morning to get there when nobody else was there, so I could take some of these photos and videos and get a little closer look at the canyon, both flying the drone as well as just with traditional film and photography and some of those kind of things. I did talk with one of the rangers at the park. He was talking to me about how they continue to do all sorts of cool work at Ledges. They were starting to work on some of the high trails, on some of the steps. One of the things you'll notice if you go to Ledges is it's incredibly hilly. If you go from that canyon, or you just kind of go off on the trails and you're looking at the trail map without thinking about the topography, you're going to be in for a climb on most of them. Now you can park at the top of the canyon near kind of Inspiration Point, and then you could, if you tried, probably stay on top of the bluffs there, but be in it for the climb. There's all sorts of cool things about Ledges that you can take a look at. Ledges itself is famous for these sandstone kind of cliffs or outcroppings, and these are kind of a remnant of Iowa's maybe deepest past that we understand, especially as it relates to the environment. Iowa was once part of the Western Interior Ocean, or we were underneath it, which kind of ran between the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains, all the way from the Arctic Ocean down to the Gulf of Mexico. And those sandstone outcroppings are a remnant of that kind of deeper past. I think it's really interesting to consider how that kind of changed and how Iowa's environment continues to change over time, and how we can see some of those remnants today. I did fly the drone quite a bit down in the canyon. It was a great morning for it, taking a look specifically at some of those kind of different sandstone outcroppings, as well as just kind of the density of the forest around. Ledges was founded in 1924, making it not quite the oldest state park in the system, but again, one of the most beloved. As I kind of worked through the day, I was really looking forward to Ledges. I knew this would be a site that would provide me with a lot of opportunities to kind of get some cool things. So on part 2, day 4, I went from Big Creek State Park up to Ledges State Park, visited the Iowa Arboretum, Camp Mitigwa, Madrid in between, and was able to take in some interesting sites. If you have interesting insights into some of the sites I saw, I'm still doing a lot of research into this project that'll really kick off. These are kind of my observations in the videos and articles that are releasing while I'm still walking across the state. But when I get into July and August, I'll be really diving into the archives to develop the research aspect of this project as I move towards creating a book, longer form documentary, those kind of things. So if you have those, make sure you're letting me know. People make this project better every day, and I really appreciate all the different support and insights that people have provided to the project. I appreciate you taking the time to come along with me on the 2021 Walk Across Iowa to follow in the footsteps of the 1835 Iowa Dragoons. Thanks.
There's a lot of good history about Iowa a lot of people don't even know about.